When the 2011 census data came out, it showed that apart from 1.21 billion population, there was only 7% of the population were trilingual, in spite of having a three-language policy for so many years. You could not write there's no column for writing your address. This census also has one from the, I think it's the 106th Constitution Amendment, etc., on women's reservation. One of the provisions of that is that women's reservation will come into effect first census after the Constitution Amendment is passed. So when this census is completed and the data becomes available, the government can then move forward both the delimitation as well as the reservation of seats for women and the whole issue of the total number of Lok Sabha seats, etc. You've seen, like Bihar, Karnataka and all, they've had so-called caste census. Strictly speaking is illegal because only the union government can do a caste census. The states are not permitted. You can do a survey, but you cannot do a caste survey. In the case Bihar, the central government first put out an affidavit saying that Bihar's caste census data cannot be disclosed because only we can do the caste census. And then because politically they thought it's against, it would react adversely, they withdrew the affidavit and allowed the caste census to be done. When the caste census is going to be done, you're going to have a whole series of complications in the caste census.
Our next topic is census. The question of census looks so innocuous that people argue that it is just a collection of statistics, just a form of statistics that we collect every 10 years. But it is not so simple. That is why there was no census in last 6 or 7 years. In fact, it could have been started immediately after the COVID, but it was not done. To hear more on this subject, we have Mr. Gopal Krishnan Pillai, who as Home Secretary in 2011 oversaw the census operations. So, welcome Mr. Pillai, the floor is yours.
Been a non-controversial subject in the past. As you said, generally people think that you collect population statistics and you take a lot of time over it because the digital exercise had not come. But if you see the data which comes out of the census, and I thought I'd just give you just a couple of things to whet your appetite. When the 2011 census data came out, it showed that apart from 1.21 billion population, people of India spoke, there were 121 languages which had more than 10,000 speakers. There was only 7% of the population were trilingual, in spite of having a three-language policy for so many years. There were 19,500 mother tongues being spoken in India. I just thought I'd tell you because somebody said, make mother tongue the medium of instruction in education and so on, but there are 19,500 different mother tongues. And the literacy rate, just for information, is 82.41% male, 65.46% female. We'll see what the 2027 census, what data it comes out. The census also has one aspect that it is also, the importance of the census is that it is used for allocation of government funds, welfare funds. It is used for the constituencies, the number of seats, etc. And it's also used for reservation for SC, STs and the different aspects which come into the. But the 2026-27 census, it's called the 2027 census because the data is of 1st March 2027, even though a few states will have it, is the 16th census. And it is slightly different from the earlier census, primarily because for the first time, you are having census which is digital. You're using electronic for a large aspect of the census. You're also including self-enumeration, which you never had in the earlier census, because in the earlier census you had the enumerator coming to your house and jotting down all the points. And you're also introducing what is called the caste census. I'll speak a little bit on the caste census in detail at the end of my presentation. We all know the first phase has begun. The house listing and the housing census, that part is begun. It will be completed by 30th September. Many of you would already have done the self-enumeration, or you had the officers coming to your house. Even there you will find how difficult sometimes when you become into digital. You must have found when you did the GPS, you could never sometimes get your house address because the self-enumeration didn't have, you could not write there's no column for writing your address. You had to do it geospatially through the app. And so you never got that, and then somewhere close by, and then when the enumerator came to your house, she would note down the address, actual address, and so on. And you must have seen also that there are clauses which look, when they put it in the enumeration clause, the number of rooms you have. Now most people think number of rooms, you say I've got a 2-bedroom house, I've got a 3-bedroom house, people will put 2 or 3. And when the enumerator came and she said, no, I don't want 3 bedrooms, I want all the rooms, including the study room, the dining room, if you have any other rooms, etc. That's the total number of rooms which she wanted. And I can tell you that the other people I know who said that when the enumerator came to their room, they didn't say anything. You got a 2-bedroom house, she wrote 2 and went away. So you will still have that gap because of the lack of training of the enumerator and the lack of consistency in terms of how they do it. This census also has one from the, what I think is the 106th Constitution Amendment, etc., on women's reservation. One of the provisions of that is that women's reservation will come into effect first census after the Constitution Amendment is passed. So when this census is completed and the data becomes available, the government can then move forward both the delimitation as well as the reservation of seats for women and the whole issue of the total number of Lok Sabha seats, etc. I'm going to spend some time on the caste census, because even though census is a subject in the union list, in the 7th schedule, you've seen, like Bihar, Karnataka and all, they've had so-called caste census. Strictly speaking is illegal because only the union government can do a caste census. The states are not permitted. You can do a survey, but you cannot do a caste survey. But again, political reasons, You know, in the case Bihar, the central government first put out an affidavit saying that Bihar's caste census data cannot be disclosed because only we can do the caste census. And then because politically they thought it's against, it would react adversely, they withdrew the affidavit and allowed the caste census to be done. Now what we have seen when the caste census is going to be done, you're going to have a whole series of what shall I say complications in the caste census. And partly it is because you have ambiguity in the meaning of caste across the country. You also have attempts to change caste names. Caste names are not fluid. Some caste name in the previous census, in the 1971 census, in 1981, those castes have changed their name. Sometimes part of Sanskritization, sometimes changes, etc. The use of multiple names for the same caste. There is migration of castes which take place across, and when they migrate, they again change their caste. You also have confusion owing to change of faith. When people get converted, either to Islam, either to Christianity and so on, names change. And then there's phonetic resemblance. People say a particular word, that same sound doesn't apply. And then the entire Sanskritization issue of what we call as taking on identities of other castes. This is something which is happening all the time. This issue of what are the total number of castes that are there in India and so on has been debated. A lot of studies have been done, and I think one of the most authoritative is the People of India project, which has finally, after a lot of studies, anthropological research and so on, has given a complete list of caste names. We also know that almost every caste, barring a very few, have multiple names. That is also a fact. So, I just wanted to give you a sample of normally traditional occupation has been the most common source of name. You know, you have teli for the oil presser, you have caste names which emerge from places of migration, and you have preferred names for the caste, and you have also names which are used by higher castes which sometimes are neutral and sometimes derogatory. So the caste which is having the particular name, they don't like that particular name, but sometimes in the earlier, when the enumerator went, the enumerator didn't take what that person gave as his caste. He gave, because he was from the dominant caste, maybe he gave the name which he knew this guy actually belongs to. So you have that. So there's that complication which is there. And then you have, I'm just giving an example, the Vaishyas in Karnataka, they don't like being referred to as Komati, because that is the word which, and the Hadpad community, which is the Lingayat Babas, have adopted the title Savita Samaj. You have Uparas, which are the salt makers, are now no longer known as, they don't like to be known as Uparas, they are now changed, they are Sagara Vanshadavaru, claiming descent from sage Sagara. So that's how they've changed some of the names. And you've got the issue of, I'm just giving an example of there are 55 Christian subgroups. Some of them are even called, they call themselves Brahmin Christians, and they have that issue. So again, whether they are really subcaste, whether they are OBCs, and so on. I'm just giving you an example. The Maratha soldiers which passed through and settled in the Dakshin Kannada district, they are known as Marathi. The Maratha soldiers, they are known as Marathi, they are a scheduled tribe. Other Marathi speaking castes like Darji, Chippi, Shippi and Namdar are not in the ST but as OBC. You also have Gond in Uttara Kannada, often referred to as Gondaru, and about 158,243 got themselves identified and became scheduled tribes, because they have been confused in one sense with the Gonds tribe of Chhattisgarh, who speak Gondi, which is a language from the central Dravidian area. So you can see this mix of castes, names, different, etc. And what has not yet been come about, because the caste census and what castes are going to be, what names are going to be identified, some castes and their subcastes. You remember when the Bihar election took place, you must have seen one of the ministers who was a Kushava, and he said, we had a community which was, I think it was the Dangis. He said, they are a subcaste of the Kushava, but they have been put as a separate group. So the Kushava population came down, and it has that impact. So you're going to have that impact when the caste census is done. If you don't put these details together and have transparency and have what I call it as prior discussions at a much larger level, so that you have a broad consensus. Otherwise, after the caste census is done, then you will have a lot of issues which are coming up, because people will say that I gave this caste and people have put some other caste which is really not correct. And you've seen integration of castes. You remember when Lingayats, Vokaligas, etc. in Karnataka, it was a consolidation of castes. And sometimes now there have been movements within to break away from the Lingayats and say that we are the particular subcaste, we still want to be, we don't want to be called Lingayats, we want to be called as this particular caste, because they feel they get some benefits being either OBC or extreme OBC and so on and so forth. So again, that fissiparous tendency is also being seen, and it's a political call which the government will take when the final list is done. And that is why it is so essential that there is a public debate open within the entire country before this is done. That exercise, I am told, is underway in the Census Department, in the Ministry of Home Affairs, but very little of it is still available to the general public. So my only suggestion would be that before you finalize the list of castes and the subcastes, if you are making that differentiation, you will have to then have that public discussion and that debate in public, which will come. There is last of all, I'm going to end on the census, because it's an exercise which is very well established in the Census Department, because I had overseen the census. There would be a little bit of a problem now, because you had now 15, 16 years a gap between the census, and therefore a large part of the number of the senior officers in the department who have moved out and were aware of many of the, even though the drill, like in the Election Commission, the drill is well laid out. You know, last 2011 census, we had, I think, 33 lakh enumerators, primarily teachers and so on. This time that number is going to be much larger, because the population has gone up, and getting them to get together to do this exercise in the month of February 2027 is going to be a massive exercise, because the caste census is also included. And the impact is going to come, as I mentioned, because of two particularly important issues, which is the women's reservation, which has to brought into effect after that, and you will have delimitation, and then the number of constituencies which will change, and that itself has political implications which the country will have to take care of when that happens. But it's a census which is entirely through digital. The self-enumeration is there. So the pro forma has not yet come. The app for that will come a few months later. And when we see that, it is one of the aspects which is important. What will really take place this census compared to the previous census, where data processing took almost 3, 5, 7 years. Sometimes till the end of the next census, they were still pulling out data from the earlier census, raw data. This time, I think with the digitization of the entire process, I am given to understand that almost 100% of the data which is to come out will come out within 1 year. That within 1 year, that is by end of 2027, the entire data, which is, I'm talking about literacy, female literacy, sex ratios, everything, all that data will come out by the end of 2027. And that is something which we look forward to. I appreciate it.